Hello and welcome back. This is going to be another lecture on PowerShell DSC with automation. So within this lecture, what we are trying to do is we will be creating one virtual machine, and also if you have not gone through the automation account, how to create, we will go through automation account. And also we would be creating complaint specific scripts to be importing into the automation account for DSC, and also we will use the library or the PowerShell third-party tools or third-party source for DSC configuration, and we will use them to configure the PowerShell DSC. So within this VM we will try to do two things. The first one would be the computer rename, and the other one would be the simply installing the IIS. If the IIS is not found, it's going to install the IIS application. So that's the agenda within this lecture. So let's begin. So as a first step, we need to create a virtual machine for performing the testing. So I'm going to fast forward this entire creation of virtual machine because you might be already knowing how to create virtual machines. So I'll just go with the default options in order to create the virtual machine. And once the virtual machine is created, if you have not gone through how to create automation account, we will be showing you here once again how to create the automation account. So just search for the automation account and click on add. That would actually start the automation account wizard. So within this wizard, you can actually give the automation account name and your subscription and your resource group and your location. Also make sure that you have actually selected your run as account here, because with this account help, you're gonna actually execute all the PowerShell commands on those machines. So this run as account will have the full permissions on your resources, including your subscription. So it's like a co-administrative account. And we did talk about these in the automation account specific lecture. But within this lecture, if you're not sure how to create automation account, this is the one step how to create automation account. And also in the previous lecture, we talked about how to create the pre-requirements to be meet for a DSC configuration, like creating log analytics services and automation account. So just wanted to cover here one more time. So you need to have the log analytics services, and also to store that you need to have the storage account. At the same time, you need to have even automation account. So this demo would actually cover the automation account with respected configurations also. So now we have successfully created almost the automation account. Here if you see here, this has run automatically created. Here if you see, as part of the creation wizard, it is actually created a run as account, which is nothing but in the backend as a service principal, because on top of this we can grant permissions for any of the Azure resources. That's why it's a service principal, we call it here. And also automation account has been created. As a next step, I can refresh and find the automation account that was created, and this is just show you here how it looks like. And I'm not going to use this automation account, but anything to do, you actually go to the configuration management from your automation account and select the state configuration for DSC, and this is where you can add the nodes from the nodes section, so that this donut graph would give you the good results related to the failed, in process, or pending, or completed, or unresponsive, all that information. And also you can filter here the status based also. And the later point, you can actually use the configurations to create the configuration and whatever the configuration that you are actually importing. So like, let's say when you compose or when you try to import any of the configuration, it can be a PS1 or maybe a default files which are already created by somebody else from the gallery, and you can use those configurations and they can use it. In case if you created any of the script that you wanted to monitor, then that actually have to go for a compiled configuration. So compiled is nothing but a step where it's gonna actually convert your PS1 to MOV format, MOF. So if you have worked with MOF files, that's good. Otherwise, you can learn more about the MOV format files, which is nothing but a managed object format. Your entire WMI provides in the format of MOV files, and it gets compiled and then it gives you as a WMI repository. Similarly, all this, the things which would happen in the backend on a pull server or the DSC server. So you don't need to worry about that compilation or MOV comp or whatever the compiling process. So all you need to know is, yes, that script which is working should be available with you, and then you can import it. So that way you can assign later point that configurates to the required nodes from here. So that's how it's going to work. So as part of the demo, what we do is we would actually import other one which is readily available from the configurations, and that's nothing but the computer rename script which is already available, so that we can have a look on it. And based on that, in the previous lectures we did actually create it with respect to the IIS. So the same script we are going to reuse it here and try to import and do the configuration, so that the virtual machine, that's a VM post to the reboot of the VM computer name changes, it should actually also have the IIS. So that's the plan. So let's jump into those actions. So once you got this information about the account automation thing, and what I'm going to do is, since I've already covered in detail about the automation account respected in the previous lecture, I'll just skip it here by giving whatever this little bit of introduction like we said earlier. So what I'll do is I'll actually go to the virtual machine of that DSC VM01, and then we can configure from there. But if you see here, if I want to add it like this, I can just go and connect it. So that way I can connect it. So let's go to the virtual machine and do the configuration from the backend. So this is my virtual machine VM01, and what I'll do is I'll simply go to operations. So just wanted to quickly tell you about operations. So within operations you have everything. What exactly operations? So your day-to-day Azure job activities would involve into the operations. Let's say, are we talking about the Bastion services to connect, or auto shutdown, or backup, or disaster recovery, or guest host updates, or inventory management, including the change management, and all that, including the configuration management, which is nothing but in this case DSC, and the policies and run commands if you want to run any kind of other commands. So that's why very important, the operations tab within this settings, operation settings, all these are very critical. I hope you would be going through it. Now let's jump into the desired configuration state. So as we talked earlier, you need to choose, you can create directly from here also. If you're trying to do the first time, you can do it from here, but if you have already created automation account as well as the log analytic workspace, that's fine. Otherwise you can directly create from here by enabling. So what we are trying to do is we are selecting the location and log analytic workspace and automation account, and then I would be clicking on enable. But let's also understand the agent settings. So coming back to the agent settings, we do have here a refresh intervals of 30 minutes. So within 30 minutes of the time, it's going to actually go and get the policy settings, and also configuration. It's going to check every 15 minutes here, and also here the configuration mode, which is very important here. We are just applying for the monitoring, not for any other settings. And also you see here, it's going to be override any kind of modules if it is found, and if it is required a reboot of that virtual machine, we can take this checkbox. And post to the reboot, do you want to continue, or you want to just stop this configuration, so you don't want to monitor? So in my case, I wanted to go for continue with the configuration. That's what I wanted to take it, and you can simply enable this so that you get the consistent configuration settings for your log analytics services. With the help, you can actually get it a desired state of your virtual machine. So we talked about this, and let's also have a look on by enabling this. So it says that, hey, this is not error actually. If you look at here, it takes actually 15 minutes of players time, so that once we have that timing is completed, we get a good view very similar to the automation account view that we would be getting here. So I'll just completed this, and let me refresh here, and I would actually get a different view altogether. So let me show you here, and this is what the configuration management view. Now very similar view, but if I want, just I can apply here for this virtual machine a specific settings directly from here. Else if I want to manage multiple machines, when I click here, it actually takes to the automation account. So let me click on the configuration management and show you here the summary. And if I as soon as I click on that multiple, it's actually taking me to a different automation account that was created when we enable. So this is the automation account, and you see here the node was automatically added. If not, I can actually go ahead here and click on add to different node, and that node also check the compliance level. So because we didn't apply any kind of DSC specific configurations, it's actually showing it's a compliant at this point of time. And I can view the reports and the more detailed information. So if I just go to the automation account, so earlier we created this account. Now this account was automatically created by the wizard of that virtual machine. So that's good, okay, but it also created a different resource group. So that's why it's good to create yourself a automation account and then put it into your right resource group. That way you will follow the life cycle of the objects. So here there's no job task because we talked about earlier different things about the automation account, but within this lecture we will focus to the state configuration. That's nothing but a DSC. So within DSC, what we are going to do now, so I'll explain here the more settings about the DSC. So within this blade or within this configuration, you have a nodes. Let's say I want to add an additional virtual machine. Right away I can do it from my automation account by selecting a different virtual machine. Let's say this was added earlier. Now I want to add this as a new virtual machine. I simply click on add and say connect. That's going to actually connect it. So the current status is not connected. So if I do a refresh in a few minutes, it's going to be connected in a minute or so. So click on connect, and this is where I am gonna specify what kind of configuration to be validated. So what we are trying to say is, we are trying to say, hey, you go ahead and install the DSC extensions. That's good, but also monitor with these any of these settings. In fact, we didn't created all these baselines. These baselines were offered by Microsoft for different operating systems. In fact, mine is the 2019. I don't have a 2019 here. If you see 2008 R2, SP2, and 2012 R2, 2016. So it's going to fail if I apply any of them. But that's okay, just for the testing purpose. I just wanted to show you on DSC VM02 because that's purely a test machine for me. And we talked about all these configurations earlier, but we didn't talk about all these two extra configurations which is also available when we try to add the virtual machine from that wizard also. Like one would be the configuration mode is just to apply monitoring, or just to apply and leave the monitoring, or you want to autocorrect. So this is very important, autocorrect. Autocorrect, what it does is it's going to apply this DSC configuration, and then if the settings were not found, it's gonna push those settings. Let's see, if I look for a computer name as a specific computer name, if this computer name is not found, it's gonna rename to that specific computer name. So that's called autocorrect. Similarly, if I'm looking for IAS configuration on this node, if I don't have IAS configuration, it will simply check here. If it doesn't found, it's going to push those settings. That's what auto apply and auto correct. So that's a setting that's very important here. We can use that specific setting And node configuration, as I said, if you just use 2016, that's fine maybe, but it's not going to work actually any with this machine. But just wanted to give you an idea how you can add those additional machines. Once you added these machines, the remaining things are same. So let me click on here, okay, to add. So that takes a minute to add. Here adding is nothing but a connecting. So if I just go back to this VM01, you see here this VM is already connected status, because as part of the wizard we did actually connected. And you see here we were not configured much settings. Let's say the configuration is not forced, not rebooted, appliance just the configuration mode is unknown, and all that. So we want to recorrect this VM01 also. We will be doing that in a minute or so when we actually apply our settings. So I'll just click on a refresh so that it should actually show in a minute or so here. That's fine. And if you see here, if I don't want this machine to follow this wizard or should be part of this DSC, I can simply click on unregistered if I really wanted, or I can click on assign node configuration, and then whatever the configuration we wanted to apply, that can be applied like we did earlier for VM02 DSC-VM02. What we did is we applied this one 2016. We can simply select and click OK. That would actually applies that specific configuration, but I don't want to do that actually. So I'll just cancel these things here. And now if you see here, once we apply here, we can get it here as the in progress. So as soon as I'm actually looking here the complaint status, that's why the filter is not showing, but the graph is showing, that the pi bar is showing. So what I'll do is I'll actually filter everything, then I should be able to see one with the baseline is applying. So that's how you can actually apply a later point. So that's good. So let's go for configurations, and you see here all these are default. That's why it is compiled. That means it was compiled to MOF format, and it was available with the automation account repository. And if I want, I can click on add and simply add my PS file. So I'm going to do that in the next minute or so. That's the second part of this video. And you see here, whatever the configurations we applied, these were applied for how many nodes are showing here. Let's say this is actually for 2016 server. So that was actually showing for one node. And you have a very good configuration settings that can be used from a gallery. So gallery will offer you a lot of built-in configurations done by third-party vendors. It can be a Microsoft in this case, and it can be somebody else also here, right? So anybody can offer their scripts to monitor a custom configuration. For example, this is for monitoring a state of a domain controller. This is for PowerShell endpoint new configuration. This is for PowerShell endpoint remove configuration. So different guys offers different scripts. So if it is really useful for you, you can go through it. Let's say I want to configure IIS configuration. You can view it and use them. Let's say if that gives you some idea related to the Windows features, you can edit little bit and change them by importing and exporting later point to modify accordingly, and then you can develop that on top of it. So that's very important and very useful, the galleries. So you look at a lot of other galleries or missions are available, and you can use any of them. These all are related to the DSC configuration. So if you are completely new, that's fine. You can straightforward go ahead and use the galleries. But if you're new, you want to do it, then you have to click on compose and then add it, or you can click on add and do it. So when I click on compose, actually this is where also it's going to show you a little bit of configurations, that's repository specific things which are already compiled and available for you. Let's say this is for Windows feature set, this is for optional features to install, and if you see here, this is where computer rename. So I wanted to use the computer rename option. So let's say whatever my computer name is, I wanted to set a specific configuration of that. So you see here the code also you're able to see. This is a simple PowerShell code which is readily available. On top of it, you can do the modification. So here you think about anybody if it's trying to hide their source code, it would be hard for you. But here with the DSC, the thing is like here, you know the source code of any of your configuration settings, and you can work on it if you know that programming skills or the PowerShell skill with respect to DSC. So all this code is available. So what it is doing is it's simply doing the PSDSC run as a credentials it is trying to do. It depends on that, and it's going to do the rename of that specific computer. Simple thing, it's just renaming the computer on a local. Since it is mentioned as a local, it's going to do that execution on the local computer. I hope it's easy to understand here about this. So if I just log into this virtual machine DSC-VM01, this VM has the computer name called DSC-VM01. So let's have a look on the configuration here, configuration management, and you see here nothing has been assigned at this point of time. So that's good. So I can even apply from set desired configurations also, or if I just click on here, as you know that it takes to the automation account. So I'll just go to the automation here, and it's actually asking here to enter the parameters. So you see here earlier we saw the computer name is DSC-VM01, right? Now I'm gonna give the computer name as here whatever the name I wanted, like DSC-01 example, and this should run with the credentials. Let's say you don't want your run as account to be used, but you want to use some additional credentials, then you can actually add it here. That's a use case of this new credentials, but in our case we are not going to use that because our run as account has full permissions, and also it depends on the computer rename functionality. So click on save. So in a minute or so it's going to be appear here, and it was not showing as a compiled. So that's very important to compile. So just click on that, and you see here a button called compile, and it is even in fact try to compile, but it's the queue. So what I'm gonna do is I will compile on my own. Let's say you want to export this configuration later point, you can export to PS1 or whatever the format, and later point you can import it. And you see here the node was into the green, and it's still showing as a 0, and it is starting, and then if it is going to maybe suspended state, you should be able to do it. So in my case it's in a suspended state, so I want to compile, but while I wanted to compile, I'm gonna give here a new computer name. So this is going to be the new computer name which is going to be applied for that node. So let's enter the name. In this case the same name I wanted to enter, like DSC-01. It's a simple name I wanted to use. So, and this is required. So who has written as a required is by the developer of that script or DSC. So in this case it's required, and we did actually compiled. Now in a minute or so, if I just try to refresh this, and I should be able to see here under nodes count here as the compile. So I'll just refresh. In a minute or so it should be applied. So now it is actually compiled. I'll just go back to my DSC-VM01 and I'll try to connect in between and see how the computer name is there, because it's not yet applied. So we have not yet applied. We made the script to be available and imported, and it is readily available and also compiled, but not added as a configuration to this virtual machine yet. So we're going to do that. Before that, I just wanted to show you on this virtual machine what is the computer name. So let's type host name to find out the computer name. So it's a DSC-VM01, and you see here it's compiled now by this time, and node count is 0 because that was never applied. So now I'm going to add, click on add button here, and then select your node and say connect. So you see here reboot, all that was definitely needed for you, as you know that if we rename the computer, you need to reboot the computer to, in fact, to apply. So I have to change this configuration also. So what I'll do is I'll gonna connect it, and this time I'm going to change, and here it's going to ask me, hey, what kind of configuration you want to apply. You can choose here either the computer rename or something else. So in our case, definitely the computer rename, and the frequency is the minimum is the 30, and the here also the 15 is the minimum. You can't do lesser than that, but you can change to the higher value. And applying the monitoring option, I'm going to actually apply this monitoring option, and then 30 is fine and the 15 is fine. Let's go to apply and monitor. Should be actually autocorrect, right? So as we talked earlier, we wanted this configuration that the rename should be automatically autocorrect. If the computer name is not matching, you go ahead and correct it, and if really needed, let's reboot that machine by taking an action. So that's what we're going to try to do. So we're not doing the apply, we are applying with autocorrect and allowing the module to override, as well as the, if really needed, we do the reboot of the machine. And actions for reboot would be continue configuration. So that means post to the reboot, it will actually keep an eye whether this configuration is as per the desired state. If not, it actually recalculate by using these values. So that's what it was there. So click on OK. So it's gonna do in a minute or so automatic reboot of my machine, and I'll just pause and wait for 15 minutes or so, because that's the interval time, and it will pull up those values. And you see here the extensions 2.8 and 15, all that has been changed now after I do the quick refresh. And that's good. So I'll just go to my virtual machine and give a second, or before that I can actually refresh here, and you see here it's already complained by this time. So I think it should be already changed the value also of the computer name, but we'll give a minute or so because it has to go through the reboot and other steps. And you see here the count is changed to the node 1, the computer rename option. So that's good. So it's still doing in the back end that step for the VM configuration side. Okay, and that being said, I'll just go to this virtual machine. I just logged into this virtual machine, and you see here the virtual machine name has been automatically changed to DSC-01, and I'll simply type host name also. It has changed, but it does not have IAS yet. So what I'm going to do is I have already created a folder, and inside a folder there's a PowerShell script, with simple PowerShell script, which we talked in the previous lecture about IAS. So the same one, I'm going to reuse it to install web service. So in this case, you see here, it will ensure that .NET ASP 4.5 as well as the web services both should be available. If not, it's going to be installed automatically. That's the idea. So I'll just import this configuration. So for that, I don't need to do even the zip and all that things. I can simply go to Azure portal for the automation account and then import from the configuration. So here I'll just have to select the compose configuration, and then within this, if you see here compose, what we have done is earlier with the rename option, right? Compose, but this time we are going to actually select configuration and add node, and then the configuration file. So in this case, I'm going to give the path of my PS1 script, which is mentioning here in this case PS1, and I can give here maybe a description if I really want it, but that was actually imported if I just give the PS1 as a web server. So that's a configuration name which was there within the PowerShell. So if you see here, if I just do a quick refresh also, web server configuration is available, but that was not actually showing anything. So let me refresh. I'm sorry, that was actually overspread it because of the text zooming. So you see here, it's still the computer name is fine, that's a green, but web server, which is still 0. And you remember, whatever the configuration we import for the PS1, as we talked earlier, this must be compiled, right? So we have to run this job to compile. So I'm going to do the compile. Once I do that compile, in the backend, it's going to create a MOV file. So you see here, I just waited and it has refreshed. It's completed the node configuration. Now that's good. So now I can apply this specific configuration. You see here, there's no errors, but I can apply this configuration by clicking on add node and select my VM01 maybe. In this case, because I just wanted to stick to VM01. And this time I'm going to connect a node configuration. I'm going to choose here web server specific and autocorrect. If not found, you go ahead, override and require reboot. If so, it can do the reboot. Click OK. So that would actually do the configuration for you on IIS. So after maybe a 5-10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes of time, I should be able to get it. So if I just refresh here and see the configuration, which is in this case here, it's a complaint, but if I just do the refresh, I may have to wait. Yeah, you see here web server.local, post to the refresh, and that's good. So what we will be doing is, if I just go to the server, to the same server, and click on manage, add roles. Just wanted to show you here, okay, or you can just go to the admin MMC also. But here, if I try to add, by this time already added web server IIS features. So this explains the advantages of your DSC. So DSC, when it is integrated purely with the Azure Automation State configuration, it is an Azure configuration management service. So this is going to be allow you to write, manage, compile your PowerShell DSC configurations for your nodes. It can be in any cloud or your on-premises data centers. So this service is really helpful in terms of the DSC resources, assigning configurations with the PowerShell gallery, or it's going to give you a lot of features. And this is not just to Azure cloud. You can extend to AWS EC2 instances or to your on-premises virtual machines or physical machines also, by utilizing all these existing gallery files also. Or you can write based on these galleries. Like you will be getting the known source code, right? So either you are getting from the here, or you can simply import and then edit and write it in a other way of writing. Maybe if somebody wanted XYZ feature, you want to add some other additional features, you can do it, feel free to. So that way you can actually manage the state configurations fully automated. So this is where it's going to use. I hope this entire demonstration is useful for you. Thank you for watching.